fundó la Cámara de Comercio de Bogotá. Desde entonces, hemos trabajado por todas las empresas, especialmente las pequeñas. Las hemos ayudado a nacer, a crecer y a expandirse. Y sobre todo, las hemos acompañado. Y algo más. Han sido 145 años de trabajar por Bogotá y la región. Una Bogotá región para los negocios, la cultura, las ideas y la innovación. Y lo más importante, una Bogotá región de oportunidades. Más equitativa, más incluyente, más sostenible y más próspera. Mucho más próspera. Son 145 años de historias que no se detienen. 145 años de historias que van hacia adelante.
Cool. All good?
Buenas tardes, le damos paso a la última conferencia de la jornada de hoy. Esta es la última conferencia que se va a realizar en este auditorio bajo el tema de videojuegos y el título de esta conferencia es Video Games M&A in 2024. Esta conferencia además trata acerca de Preparing for Acquisition or Investment y será dictada y está a cargo de Jack Prosser. Bueno, Jack es consultor independiente que asesora empresas de videojuegos en actividades de fusiones y adquisiciones, de expansión global, de desarrollo empresarial y de inversión. Actualmente asesora a Universally Speaking. Esta es una empresa británica de servicios de videojuegos en su expansión en Latinoamérica y antes de eso estuvo en el desarrollo corporativo de fusiones y adquisiciones en Catalyst Group y también es asesor de la industria de videojuegos para Boot.ai. Esta es una startup que desarrolla una herramienta de retroalimentación basada en voz y esta herramienta está potencializada por la inteligencia artificial. Entonces, démosle la bienvenida a Jack.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Buenos tardes. Oh, you can see that? Okay, cool. Checking. Awesome. So my name is Jack Prosser. I'm from the United Kingdom, from London. It's my first time in Colombia. I'm very excited to be here today. I want to say big thanks to all the Ministry of Information, Technology, Communication for having me, as well as the organizers, Miguel as well, who's there, who convinced me to come, so thank you, Miguel. And so my background is video games, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, essentially the buying, selling, investing in companies. I was doing this for 2 years at a video game group in London called Catalyst, and then I left there in June. I'm now doing it freelance, and basically my job was to go around the world finding interesting companies for us to buy, meeting lots of founders, entrepreneurs, pretty fun. We were very much focused on service companies, developers, outsourcers, a bit of IP stuff too. And basically today I just wanted to give you an overview of the video game M&A landscape, what's happened this year, and what to expect in 2024. So there we go. First of all, a little disclaimer, these views are all my own. I don't work for anyone, I'm independent, and they don't represent any views that I have from my past companies or current clients, just a little legal thing. And all the images you'll see, rightly so, have been generated using ChatGPT DALL-E, because there's lots of legal things about using images from the web. Can you hear me? Is that okay? Yeah. So you'll see lots of, if you can't understand a word I'm saying because of my accent or whatever, you just enjoy the nice pictures, because we got some cool photos. Awesome. Sorry. Agenda today, we're going to talk through M&A and deal making in 23, video games M&A landscape, video games in 24, and then also more from the perspective, if you are selling your business, a bit of tips and advice of what to do. So first up, what is mergers and acquisitions? Some of you will know what this is, some of you won't. This is a classic definition, putting two companies together or a larger company buying a smaller company. However, this has evolved to include things like joint ventures, strategic partnerships, minority investments. And some people have said to me, M&A, they think it's marketing or advertising. I think a lot of finance people assume that everyone knows what it is. Right. So what's been happening so far in 2023? We've seen a massive decline in sort of global M&A in general because of the following things. So obviously, geopolitical issues, market volatility, economic uncertainty. This obviously means that we have had a bit of a decline in the stock market. And then this means public valuations go down, private valuations go down, and people don't really know how to value things. And if you're a buyer, it's difficult because, if you're a buyer, you want to pay for a low price. If you're a seller, it's pretty tough because you're not getting what you hope. And then obviously what's going on here is we have inflation. This means interest rates are high, and also then it means the cost of financing and funding all these deals goes up. To look at the numbers, see that this very nice AI generated. You can probably guess what game that's inspired from. You obviously can't use the names when you're putting in the prompts, but you put in something along the lines and it comes up. So these are the numbers. So look, if you look at, this is from a report from Boston Consulting. So loads of deals in 2021. That was sort of the peak year for it. Crazy value of deals. And since then, it's been, it's gone pretty badly. I think the numbers speak for itself, right? And then I think the one thing as well is the value thing is very important because you have, in 2023 year to date, you have less deals, so it's 14% down, but then look, you have a massive drop in the value of those. So valuations are just through the floor. And then on average, according to another report, deals are taking an average of 9.9 months to complete. It's a very long time. Normally it's like, 3 months or something. Going on to the video games thing, obviously why we're all here, what's been going on. So I think it's important to show people what sort of actors and companies are at work. And here I've sort of put 6 together, but I haven't included VC firms because it's more minority investment. This is more of a view to totally buy companies. So we have this, what we call a buy and build strategy, which is, the likes of Keywords, Embracer, Roommate. I've included Amber there because they want to buy some companies. My old firm, Catalyst. And essentially, this is, M&A is a vehicle. They want to grow via M&A. They want to buy more companies. And, this is obviously not just via that, but with the likes of, Embracer, a lot of it has just been buying companies, and now they've run into a bit of difficulty. We then have the big tech companies. So these are often guys who may be like Microsoft and Sony, who made the hardware back in the day. And then now they have more IP. They're trying to buy up IP, more franchises, more content. You've seen what Microsoft have done with Activision. And also, I guess, companies like Google, following the cloud gaming, social media, sort of metaverse companies. So obviously Meta are creating their games, their metaverse. And then you also have the big entertainment companies like Netflix, Disney, who are on this battle for eyeballs. They're all they want to spending as much time as possible, focused. So it makes sense for them. Let's not just make films and TV, let's make games as well. So Netflix have been big on that. We then have a relatively new actor, which is the sort of sovereign wealth backed. So this year we've seen Savvy Gaming, which is backed by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. This is the only sort of actor of its kind. They're looking to invest 38 billion into video games around the world. This is either full-on acquisitions or minority investments in public companies, lots of stuff. I think it'd be very interesting to see if anyone else in the world copies what the Saudis are doing. So maybe like a Qatar, Kuwait, some of the other very oil-rich Middle Eastern countries, to try and build their own video game ecosystems. We then have the more sort of corporate investor types, the likes of Tencent, Animoca, NetEase, and these guys are often making minority investments in order to get IP in their portfolio, but then also there is often a view to fully buy the companies down the line. So that's sort of why I've included them. We have your typical strategics, which is the big names these are some of the guys who've been buying companies, so Sega, EA, Roblox, Ubisoft, classic strategic, large established developers, adding franchises, IP, this sort of stuff. And then we have as well, which I think is going to come more prominent, private equity funds, a lot of the big guys in the US, so you see on there like Carlyle, TPG, Apollo, and these guys really want to get into gaming. In London, so many people are coming up to me from PE funds wanting to find a way to invest. Often they like the services companies because they like to be able to look at a forecast of a company, see what's going to happen. They're not so big on IP because it's harder to know if the game is going to sell or not. But I think they're coming to terms with IP a bit more, and they like things as well like subscription models, stuff like that. The danger is they often come into your company and change a lot of stuff. Management, whatever, financial engineering, restructuring. So yeah. So these are the sort of actors. In terms of what's been going on in 2023, so what's been happening? At the start, so I mentioned Saudi Arabia buying lots of companies. So they bought Magic Leap in January. I thought it was important we add OpenAI, ChatGPT breaking the record for most monthly active users. E3 was cancelled, which is quite a bad sign for the games industry. Epic acquired Iquiris in Brazil, so they now have Epic Games Brazil. Apple announced their big VR, AR Vision Pro headset. This is obviously very important because, the future of gaming, and we're going to see if that pays off. Embracer announced restructuring, and since then there's been lots of headcount reductions, studios being shut down, which is all quite sad, and it means a lot for the games industry. Saudi bought Scopely, big mobile games company. Tencent acquired Techland. Sega bought Angry Birds developer Rovio, great deal that. Unity, if you're a game developer here, I'm sure you've been affected by this. Unity announcing major changes. This is a big but very sad thing that happened this year. Microsoft's acquisition of Blizzard finally got approved. Whopping deal, $70 billion, biggest tech deal of all time, pretty cool. Meta's Reality Labs division announced it lost $25 billion since the start of 22 in terms of what they're putting in, and I've got a fun fact for you on that in a sec. And then most recently, acquisition-wise, a company called Aonic, which is a sort of M&A vehicle, bought a VR developer, Endreams, for $110 million. This is what's happened so far. Maybe some new stuff's going to happen before Christmas, who knows. But the fun fact is, one sec. The fun fact is, and why there's a little spaceship here, is Meta are expected to spend between $15 to $25 billion a year on their metaverse projects VR. By comparison, the US government spent, so that's sort of, call it $250 billion over 10 years. The US government spent just over $250 billion on the Apollo space program over 13 years. So it's quite a lot of money. And then video game M&A in 2023, the numbers, what's been going on. It's been a very difficult year for the games industry in general. This is obviously having a significant knock-on M&A. So despite me showing you lots of cool events that happened this year, it's been a pretty tough year, and the numbers speak for themselves. So obviously we've had big layoffs around the industry. The drop in M&A deal count year on year for those first 3 quarters, down 50%. That's quite a lot. In terms of the basket of sort of public gaming companies, that's the average share price drop since Jan 21, and you'll see the chart in a sec which shows you the companies I've chosen. You've also seen a nearly 70% drop in VC funding year on year. So a lot of big negative numbers, not so good. That's obviously what's been going on year. Despite that though, look, the market is, the video games industry is still growing, and the report I've used for this estimates it's going to be worth $288 billion in 2028. So, things are looking up. In terms of deal count, this is quarter by quarter of number of deals taking place. You see, as soon as we get to 23, everything's fallen off a cliff. Pretty nuts. In terms of public gaming companies, so these are some of the biggest gaming companies in the world that are public. I've put them on a graph starting at Jan 21, and that's their share price performance since. So as you can see, it's pretty bad. Those numbers down there are the averages of what's been happening at the end of each year. Even in this year, everything down 11.2%. So things aren't looking great since then, but things are getting better. But yeah, I'll just give you a bit of time to look at that. I'm sorry if it's a bit messy, but it's, what to look for, 2024. What to look ahead. So, after a tough 23, things are getting better. Public gaming companies are holding $45 billion worth of cash. That's a lot. This compared with lower and more sort of normalized, people are getting used to lower valuations. This should mean increased M&A and deal making. And you can see my nice AI-generated photos of deal making and what they think it is. However, the downside to this is it's going to still be dominated by large players like the public companies there. We could see some more sort of Microsoft, Activision-sized deals of others. It's a pretty nuts time. So in terms of tailwinds, good things for the industry, increased outsourcing trend, which I think is great because I know a lot of video game service companies. There's obviously lots of developers, publishers in the US who are reducing headcount, but they still need to make games. So we have a trend towards outsourcing, particularly in Latin America, which I think I'll speak about in a bit. We have this big boom in user-generated content, which I think will also help M&A, help studios. We have this increased transmedia IP. So like mentioning earlier, Netflix, Disney, creating more games, whereas they just did TV and film before. Improved mobile game sentiment. So there's a shift to sort of higher quality mobile games. And I think I'll speak about a prediction for that in a sec, but that will be probably quite good for M&A as people start to sort of buy up smaller sort of mobile games focused studios. And then we have the live services demand as well. And because of huge games, these are games that constantly need new content. There's definitely increased demand there. This is going to be good for the industry, and I think a tailwind for M&A. However, we still have challenges. We have antitrust, which is essentially the government intervening, like they did with Microsoft Activision. The problem is when there's not many deals going on, these people still have to do their jobs. So they look at things a bit more closely. We have geopolitics, so around the world, obviously, Eastern Europe, very difficult times, Middle East at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see where else, people talk about like China, Taiwan, if something will flare up there, how this will all affect. And I think I'll talk about it in a bit, but relative to the rest of the world, Latin America is looking pretty good on that side. And I think that's why a lot of companies are looking to do more business in LATAM, because somewhere like Ukraine, huge video game industry suffering massively, due to obviously the war breaking out. One thing though, people are saying weaker AAA games demand. 23 has been a crazy year for game releases. 24, probably won't match up. And then obviously the big word here, AI and regulation, how that will how that will affect everything. In terms of sort of predictions, it's obviously, interesting to make predictions for things. I've spoken to a few people, maybe on the sort of advisor side, banker side, see what they thought, and put together some top predictions. Obviously, pretty basic one that we addressed before. The Saudi-backed Savvy Group will continue to make, crazy investments. And I mentioned before, it'll be interesting to see if other sovereign wealth-backed vehicles emerge. Further private equity interest in video games, both generalist and more sort of games, media-focused funds. Mobile games shift from free-to-play to higher quality. There's going to be more mobile studios, and one person said to me he thinks there's going to be these M&A groups emerging, going around buying small mobile game studios to create sort of larger groups. Embracer are going to probably still continue selling off assets and studios. They have some amazing IP. They own the Lord of the Rings video game IP, which is pretty nuts. They own Borderlands, which is being made into a film. They're currently leasing out Tomb Raider to Amazon. But yeah, long story short, Embracer own a lot of IP. Business isn't doing that well, so I think they're going to continue to sell stuff off. Metaverse and VR, we're going to start to see the results of Meta's ambitious bets, and also with Apple too. Artificial intelligence, obviously this is a pretty sort of obvious one, but there's going to be more strategic M&A focusing on AI, be that tools that a company has, be it a technology company in video games, and also just companies that are more AI enabled than others. That will have an impact on valuations. In terms of what buyers are looking for, I'm going to speak about three things. So we have with our targets, we have some people shooting at targets. So service providers, still very popular amongst sort of M&A buyers. So the likes of Keywords, we'll still look for developers, art service providers, QA, testing, audio localization, marketing, anything you can imagine that a game company will need to be done, it's outsourcing. And as I said before, there's that increased outsourcing trend too. So those are the sort of the who, the why, and the problems. Often you get with service providers, if they have IP ambitions, sometimes some of these investors won't like that because they like the more traditional business model of work for hire service providers. Games and IP, pretty obvious. Strategic, big check, corporate investors, they're looking for franchise value, strong IP. I guess the risks there are the IP can be delicate and you have unpredictable revenues as well, if it's a non-AAA. Technology and AI, so obviously that's big, I mentioned this before. Everyone's really interested, PE, strategic, big tech, corporate investors. You can see the sort of why there. I think it's all pretty obvious though. I guess the problems, investment, CapEx requirements, you have the regulation as well. What's this going to impact? Cool. Another thing, I'm sure we can all guess what that is, and I didn't even need to say the title of the thing when it created it. It was just Wizard School. This is more about in terms of what companies want, and this can apply to non-video game companies as well. These are just what are investors looking at when they see a company, what makes them excited. So I think the big thing is obviously, some of this may be obvious as well, ambitious entrepreneurs, people who are there looking to stay and grow the business, be part of something bigger, they see the sort of the big picture, obsessed with their job, their industry, their company, motivated to grow and reward their team. We have as well cultural alignment, it's very important. Can the two companies work together? What's the team thinking about management? Honesty and openness, diversity, inclusion. Strong operational functions, does the business have things like HR, finance, IT, are these sort of solid, effective functions? HR is particularly important, obviously, with a lot of video game service companies. The talent's so important. Technology forward approach, are they embracing innovation? What is their AI strategy? What are the threats? How are they approaching them? Are they listening to their staff as well, who may have ideas about this, engineers, etc. And then I guess diversification, if diversified revenues, I say client concentration because sometimes it can be, a company will have a massive, a massive client, but then so that it looks good on paper, but then that's a big risk because that client could suddenly stop working with them. And then also I think product, service variety, not having your eggs in one basket. And then I mean diversity of team as well, so background and also skill sets. Right, now moving on to my sort of tips for from experiencing M&A conversations and making the most out of them. These are my sort of tips. So first of all, be willing to have conversations. Why? Because you can learn and gather a lot of information. You can learn how the M&A process works, about your company, you can get a free valuation perhaps, you can practice engaging with a buyer. I think it's always good to have these conversations. And look, it could also become a networking biz dev opportunity. So have these sort of conversations. Get advice, advice is so important. Industry mentors, people who have been through this before. Bankers, advisors, accountants, lawyers. Sometimes these are seen as the sort of the bad guys, sometimes on the banker side, but actually it's very important. And make sure, good accountants, good lawyers, all this is very important. Guys you've worked with before who you trust. Research and learning, so financial education, get yourself, knowing what the terminology is. It can be quite a complicated world. Follow the market, who's buying what, key players, buyers, investors. There's so many great online resources that can, where you can track deal flow, what's going on, InvestGame, gamesindustry.biz. And then also, I guess, know your buyer. If someone's speaking to you, know what deals they've done in the past, who's making the decisions, how they're considered in the market. I think that's very important. All of this, I believe, will impress potential buyers and leave them wanting more and going, wow, that was a really exciting conversation. These guys know their stuff. Let's continue. In terms of a follow-up to that, what other things? Financial preparedness. This is sort of the slightly boring stuff, but focusing on things like EBITDA, having it well formatted, ready to share, figures in USD, clear operation model. If you're showing, client revenues, stuff like that. This shows professionalism, and you'll probably be dealing with an M&A guy or a CFO or someone like that. They'll be very impressed if everything's up to scratch, and if it's messy and not clean, they're going to be a little bit, it doesn't show professionalism. Consider your ambitions. If you're going to be bought, how long do you want to stay? How much cash do you need? Do you want to cash out everything, or do you want to take more equity in the business? What are your team's ambitions? That's very important. What will happen to them when you get bought? What will your new role be in the business? Will you continue to be the CEO? It's probably very different. People often will offer you something, and then maybe it doesn't turn out to be the case. And then also, I guess, do you believe in the acquirer's business? Are you willing to take equity shares in the business? And then finally, I think it's very important to show enthusiasm and have a good story. People like a story. It's important to craft your company's story, learn how to articulate it, tell the buyer, this is my journey, this is what I've been through. I think it's very important, and it helps with the sort of overall sell of that conversation. Just a little shout out for some bankers and advisors. These are people I've worked with before that I think are particularly good. Areem are very strong, all very video game focused. Goodbody, Agnicio, Drakestar. Just a little shout out. In terms of the sort of M&A process, I'm going to show you sort of how it works. So this is more from the side of if someone's approaching you, they're going to be looking for stuff, they're going to approach, they'll evaluate, they're going to value your business, negotiate with you, put a final offer together and heads of terms, and then they're going to start their DD, due diligence. That goes through there. Closure, integration, bringing the two businesses together. Throughout, make sure your business can be found. It's very hard to find businesses sometimes. Be prepared. Honesty and clarity. Don't withhold any information, because it will eventually get found out. be realistic. Don't think that you're going to sell your business for a crazy amount of money. Be realistic about what your business is actually worth. Post-acquisition planning, start doing it straight away. What's going to happen? DD, local knowledge is so important. If I'm trying to buy a business in Colombia, I want to get local expertise, local advisors who can help me, who know what the lay of the land's like. Understand the financing of the deal. How's the buyer funding it? If it's cash, if it's debt, all very important. Part of this DD, as I said before, hire great advisors, have a good data room, people you trust, delegate responsibilities to your team as well. We call this bringing under the tent, and it's bringing your staff into the deal. It will, show that you trust them, and it also gives a bit of weight off your back as well. Most importantly, this is very obvious, but often doesn't happen, communication. Always communicate with the buyer's team, their advisors, have catch-ups. Internally, management, top team, your advisors. Communication is so key, and if communication breaks down, the deal might as well. We're going to move now on to everyone's favorite topic, AI and M&A, and how potentially it can put people, maybe like myself, or bankers out of a job. So, more efficient due diligence. The fact that nowadays you can insert files into ChatGPT, which is a relatively inexpensive product, and get them to review it, be that legal docs, financials, accounts. You can put Excel spreadsheets in, human resources, modeling, valuing the businesses. This is what a lot of bankers do, and AI can probably do it better. My favorite thing, origination sourcing, finding companies to buy. Communication and press, so press releases, post-deal stuff, synergies, what are the synergies with putting these two businesses together? And then also risk assessment as well. So geopolitical risk, macroeconomic risk, market analysis, regulatory changes. AI can do all of this, and it's going to put, I think a lot of bankers, advisors are a little bit worried because there's going to be less of them needed, more AI. And I guess it's important if you're a seller to know this as well, to know what you're up against. Quick little sort of pros and cons thing. There's good sides, there's bad sides. Some of this may be obvious, so apologies. The pros, you're going to make some money, you can cash out. Equity in a larger business, you get exposure to being part of a big business. You can reward your team if you sell your company, you can give them a bonus, you can give them shares in the new business. You have infrastructure that the buyer might have, so HR, finance, these types of things. You could get investment if you want to open a new office, a new project, develop a game. You can potentially get that. And also, I think reputation, legitimacy. If it's hard for you to find, certain clients being part of a bigger group, you can maybe, have better luck on that front. The cons are sort of, I guess, a lot of them related to the above. So you potentially losing control of your business. Loss of culture. You may have a really good culture, small company. You're suddenly part of Microsoft, and it all suddenly changes. Headcount reduction. A lot of people get worried about M&A sometimes if they're getting rid of roles that are too much the same. Equity risk. If you get shares in this new business, what happens if the business does very badly? Investor oversight. Do you really want investors, buyers looking down on you and sort of seeing what you're doing the whole time? Then also, I think promises can be broken. If the business who buys you is suddenly not doing very well, they might not be able to pay you, things like that. Oh God, is that falling off? Sorry about this. I think it's good. No. Cool. Right, we're nearly done. The final thing we're going to talk about is M&A in Latin America and where that fits in. So M&A in LATAM is on the rise. This is a nice AI-generated picture of Latin America. For some reason, it was giving, I think, Venezuela up there lots of attention. Why is LATAM M&A on the rise? There was a really cool stat that I saw, which is from a Bolivian entrepreneur called Marcelo Clor, and he made the point that the GDP of LATAM is 6.3 trillion, and there are 665 million people. In India, you have half the GDP at 3.2, but you have double the people. This is interesting. I think a lot of people underestimate Latin America, certainly in the West. Why is LATAM M&A on the rise? There's this trend of offshoring to nearshoring, and I'll give you a cool stat about that in a sec. Time zone aligned to the US, highly educated workforce, increased geopolitical stability compared to other parts of the world, cultural similarities with the US, with other European countries, and a booming tech industry. And the cool fact about the offshoring and nearshoring is, as of this year, for the first time in 14 years, the US imports more from Mexico and Canada than it does China. And this is only going to improve. It's nearshoring, friendshoring, whatever you want to call it. 2 million tech professionals in LATAM. This is a report I saw. I think it should be more than that. Also, I think in terms of stability, politics, LATAM businesses seem to be experienced and carrying on despite instability or sometimes crisis. They carry on, they get things done. Cultural similarities, even things like religious holidays, means that we have similar calendars, movies, TV shows, and sport. Onto video games, video game attractiveness in LATAM. There are 316 million gamers as of 2022, with this growing 5% annually. The industry in 2023 is worth 2.7 billion, and it's growing 10% a year to be estimated to be 4.3 billion in 2028. And hopefully we can make that number a bit bigger. What's attractive? You've got a strong work-for-hire services industry. This is appealing for M&A. Lots of mobile game focused. The Latin American people are very creative, artistic by nature. You have lower costs compared to some parts of the world, yet the quality is still very high. And also I think the government is very supportive in a lot of Latin American countries, from what I hear. Even just the Colombian government in putting this on and involving video games. So that's obviously great. Macro tailwinds as well. Smartphone adoption, which is driving mobile game use. You have a big influencer culture, which gets people into games. And then also a growing youth population. Young people play games. And then to conclude, hopefully you found that pretty interesting and you could understand what I was saying. I see some people have translation stuff on, so that's good. Concluding remarks, I guess the big thing is video game M&A is on the rise again, and LATAM is going to play a much greater role in that. There's lots of companies around the world that want to buy or invest in Latin American video game companies. My only advice is be prepared for these M&A conversations. I'm sure some of you in the room have had these before. Just be prepared when they come knocking. And know your buyer and ensure the ambitions are aligned. You don't want to join a business that might suddenly go bust, so sort of know the health of the business as well. So that's it. Gracias por escuchar. Any questions? How long was that? Good timing. Hello.
Hello, thank you very much for the talk. I wanted to ask you, do you think there is a risk of bigger companies such as Microsoft acquiring so much of the studio or development landscape that it becomes centralized in like one or two big companies?
I mean, absolutely, that's already a risk. There's already so much of that going on. I think that's a worry, and I guess that's why with the Activision Microsoft deal, there was so many worries there because the government were worried that they were going to, keep it, and it would sort of reduce consumer, consumer choice. That they were going to just make the games just on Microsoft, Xbox consoles, so acting very monopolistically. So I think, yeah, it definitely is a risk. And you've seen what's been going on with, I mentioned the company Embracer, who have bought loads of studios. Now, the share price isn't doing very well. They're in financial difficulty, and so they're closing down lots of studios. So that's a risk too. So yeah, it definitely is a risk.
And what do you think will happen after that comes to fruition?
After what comes to fruition?
After the consolidation by the big companies?
I mean, I'm sort of optimistic that there's always going to be great smaller video game studios coming through. There's so many people who want to work in video games. So I think it will just be more of like an evolution as opposed to sort of an end goal. And there's always going to be, new companies out there, young developers. So I think, it's a risk, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. And as I said as well, there's increased sort of regulation and scrutiny where people are going to be watching, and hopefully the government will stop things like that happening. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Hey, quick question. What would be your top 3 conditions that a LATAM company should comply with before thinking on M&A?
The conditions for the company, I think sort of just being of, I guess number one is being of decent size and having a good, I guess if you're a service company, having a good mix of clients, stuff like that, sort of having good functions in place, like a good HR team, finance team, stuff like that. 2, I mean, at least be maybe like 5 years into your business. You have lots of opportunity to grow organically, hopefully, so keep doing that. And then 3 as well, I think if you're struggling to sort of really expand around the world, and you're struggling to maybe get new clients or publishing deals, maybe then realize maybe it would be better to be part of something bigger. If you have that realization, if you've been trying to do it and not succeeding, maybe that's when you should consider.
Great. What's a decent size for you?
A decent sized company?
Yeah.
I would say, I guess it depends because it's obviously revenue related as well. But if we're talking about a service company, which there are a lot in Latin America, I would say sort of maybe 30, 40 employees plus, something like that. And then I guess revenue-wise, it depends as well. But I would say, at least be turning over, a couple of $1 million, things like this, because then you can get a better valuation of your business and have more negotiating power.
Thanks.
Make sense? Hello.
Hola, Jack. Bueno, en todo este proceso de...
I think I need the translating thing. Sorry. Not sure where it is. Should work. Okay, I'm excited for your question.
¿Ok? Bueno, en este proceso de adquisiciones que es tan complejo, obviamente salen algunos factores que uno tiene que tener en cuenta para no fallar. Con respecto al tema de propiedad intelectual, derechos de autor, ¿qué nos sugiere? ¿Qué nos podría comentar sobre ello cuando se están haciendo este tipo de adquisiciones donde hay un pez grande con un pez pequeñito? ¿Cómo cómo podemos blindar esa negociación sin tener el riesgo de perder nuestra idea de negocio o nuestro desarrollo ya. Entonces, esa es la pregunta y va complementaria con otra, y es en qué, si vamos a crecer en una empresa a nivel global, ¿en dónde cree usted que es el mejor sitio para hacer negocios y dónde empezar? O sea, ¿dónde sería la casa matriz?
Okay, so I believe the question was about how do you protect IP, intellectual property? Is that correct?
La primera.
Sorry?
La primera. Y la segunda
Yeah.
es dónde es el mejor sitio para hacer negocios, para abrir la casa matriz de una empresa que va a tener operación a nivel global.
Yeah, and then the second part of the question was about locating headquarters. Maybe start with that bit. I mean, obviously the US still has, we can't deny that the US has crazy dominance, and there's a lot of good aspects about being based there, you know, even like the currency, the dollar, the access to talent, but then I guess it's also expensive as well. But I think for now the US is still, you know, a very good place to be headquartered as well. I'm obviously slightly biased to the UK. London's fantastic, and geographically, London is sort of, in terms of where you can fly to different parts of the world, it's very handy. You can go over to the US or to the Middle East or Asia. So I would maybe say London or the US, you know. And then on your first question, protecting IP as part of a deal. I guess it's just make sure that when you're doing, in the process, when you're signing the contracts, the SPA, the heads of terms, just make sure you get your lawyers to have that very concrete. And that's, I think, all you can, I guess, really do, to be honest, is just the terms that you want for those IP, you make sure they're protected as best you can, and make sure you've got very good lawyers so people can't get around it. Good IP lawyers. Does that make sense? Cool, thank you. Next time I'll make sure I learn better Spanish.
Thank you very much for your talk.
Yeah.
I was wondering about the interest that these companies can have on video games, which are more focused on things like, I don't know, educational,
Yeah.
and also things like educational in specific topics like climate change or things of that sort.
Yeah, no, I think it's incredibly important. I don't know a huge amount about the education game industry or things like that. I mean, providing it's a great business with a great game, and it's clearly getting used and the business is generating money, then I don't see why. I think particularly I mentioned some of the private equity, bigger investors like that, I think they would be particularly interested because it's a more traditional business serving, it's in video games, but it's sort of serving a wider world. So I think, and it's obviously, there's an aspect to it beyond entertainment. So I think, yeah, the short answer to your question is, yes, that makes a company attractive, and all sorts of investors would be interested. Maybe if it's a company that's very focused on, like an Activision being bought now, but a Ubisoft, or if they're more focused on pure entertainment, then it's probably unlikely. But then maybe also some of these companies will see the opportunity and the talent in those companies to maybe develop other games as well. So that's something to think about too. And I guess your point as well was on things like, climate change. Obviously that's incredibly important to investors nowadays, ESG investing. Like a lot of companies, even if they see a great business, they won't be allowed to invest in it if it's not if it doesn't have a good ESG function, climate change aware. So I think, the answer is yes. Investors will look at that a lot, especially in the West, in sort of the US, UK. Investors always have to pay a lot of attention to ESG, climate change stuff. And if it's a product, if it's a game that teaches about that too, that's obviously an extra factor. So yeah, hopefully that was, yeah, sorry for the long answer.
Thank you very much.
Cool. I'm excited for a beer after this. Cool. Thank you everyone for attending. Really great questions. Glad to be in Colombia. Hopefully I'll be back soon. Cheers.
Bueno, muchas gracias a Jack por su conferencia titulada Video Game M&A 2024, How to Look and Prepare for Acquisition or Investment. A continuación, bueno, queremos darles las gracias a todos por asistir a todas las conferencias de esta sala, pero queremos hacerles una invitación muy especial al pabellón 8, donde se estará presentando nuestro top speaker, el CEO de Shazam, así que no se pierdan esta maravillosa conferencia. Va a ser en el pabellón 8, recuerden, y también recuerden revisar la página web col40.com y allí podrán encontrar la programación para el día de mañana. También recuerden invitar a todas las personas para que asistan a este evento. Recuerden que es completamente gratuito y vamos a estar aquí hasta el día viernes. Así que muchísimas gracias a todos.
Hemos finalizado nuestro encuentro en este momento. Pero hey, no te quedes con toda la información. Compártela con el mundo en redes sociales utilizando el hashtag Col40. Y recuerda, esto es Colombia 4.0. Ya haces parte de la era de la inteligencia artificial.